Okay, so we're here with Snatch 101 with Madison Rice. She has never snatched before in her entire life, and she's gonna learn how to do it the garage strength way. All right, so first I want to start with, and this is going to be the entire progression that I teach all of our athletes that come into garage strength from day one. I want to first establish your grip. Okay, so with you, what I want to see is your hip bone sort of like sits right here, and I want to see the bar resting across that hip bone, and something that you can, what ends up happening is as you move your grip out a little bit wider, as you move the grip out, the bar will start to rise up your hip, okay? But then a little trick that we're gonna do too is that when you put the bar overhead, a little cheat is just that bar will be about 2 fists above your head. Okay, so that actually looks pretty much perfect in line where your hip bone is. So now I wanna see, put that bar right up overhead. Okay, so it's maybe a little bit, move your grip out maybe like a ½ inch, just a little bit wider, so that index finger is closer to the rings. Okay, so the first thing that I like to do is I want to establish where that bar position is going to be when she gets down into the hold. Because ultimately what we want to do is pull as long as we can pull and then catch as low as we can catch. Okay, so give me a couple presses off the upper back of your shoulder. And what this does is this is going to teach you where that bar position needs to be. So a little quicker punch now, one more. Good. Okay, so try and feel and squeeze at the top and feel where that bar is. Okay, that's good right there. Now move those feet out just a little bit wider and give me an overhead squat. And that bar should be in the exact same position that it was in when you were doing those presses overhead. So give me 2 more. Good, 1 more, head up, a little more neutral. Good, perfect. Okay, take a little breather. So what I want to do is when we're doing those presses is that your body is basically going to tell you where the bar needs to be. Yeah. So it's press, and then when we get down in the hole, we move those feet out a little bit wider. And when you're deep in the hole, ultimately, this is where we're going to be when we're catching the snatch. Okay, so by the end of this session, we'll be down there. Okay. But the goal becomes now is that first I want to establish your catch position. I want to establish, the feeling that you're going to have in the catch, and then I'm going to work backwards and I'm going to teach you how to pull to get to the catch. But I believe that it's much better if we can just solidify the catch position first, because now you know how that feels, and then all that matters is getting the bar there. Yeah. Okay? So we'll go snatch presses off the back. We'll do 2. Then we're going to put the bar back on your shoulders. Okay, so 2 presses. Good. Now lower that bar back to your shoulders. Okay, now we're going to do a snatch balance. So you're going to have your feet here, and then as you drop, you're going to move your feet out and go down into the hole. Good. Now the bar's starting to creep forward a little bit, so squeeze the upper back, squeeze those traps a little bit more. Let's go 3 more. Now see, that's actually a good, I'm so glad that just happened, because if you had weightlifters on, that probably wouldn't have happened. But your active mobility is still pretty good, and that's why I'm anxious to do this without weightlifting shoes, because most people who go into a gym, they don't have weightlifting shoes. They just go in with sneakers or like what I have on. So this to me is actually more practical, because for people who are just starting to get into weightlifting, what's going to end up happening is that, maybe you do 10 or 15 sessions and you're having a lot of fun, then I would say invest in a pair of weightlifting shoes. But if you're sitting there and it's like, well, dude, this sucks, I don't like it, then you don't buy weightlifting shoes. Good. Perfect. Okay, so we had 3 reps there with basically 3 different movements. One was a little forward, then one you overcorrected, the bar went back a little bit, the third one was perfect. So the biggest thing there is don't think about trying to be as perfect as possible. Obviously we do want to strive to be, perfect, but each rep is just going to get to the point where we're building you up, and you're figuring out the movements that you can slowly get better and better at it. And one thing that I would say there is you felt that one was a little bit forward, you corrected on the second one, went a little bit behind. So because you've never really done anything overhead as far as Olympic weightlifting is concerned, if that bar is like getting back behind, don't try, yeah, just drop it. Especially, I mean, even right now, because this is it'll be awkward. It's the first time you've ever really weightlifted, but just drop it for your own safety. And that's one thing I think everybody needs to be aware of, is that when that bar either gets too far forward, don't try and crank and hyperextend your lower back, or your shoulder gets in a funky position. Just let go. It's not, you know, it's okay. So when the bar is on the shoulders, now I want you to squeeze those traps together to try and establish that shelf. There you go. Good, 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 good. In weightlifting, every single set, like if you have the mental aspect, like, okay, now I can squeeze my upper back when I'm doing that snatch balance. Now that's going to be the same position that we want to feel when we get overhead into the full snatch, and it's sort of like, okay, how can we establish that the feeling of the press even into the snatch balance, which then carries over into the full catch. So that's, you know, if you have any questions with that stuff, just yell at me and tell me to explain a little bit more. But that set was really good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the pull, and we're going to start with staying above the same exact grip. We're going to stand up all the way up to the top. There you go. Now think like shoulder blades come together, so you're retracting, and I want you to lower to just above the knee, a little bit more, yep. And we're going to go, you're going to hit, put the bar overhead, and then you're going to catch here, and then do an overhead squat.
I didn't move my feet.
That's okay, that's okay. So go back to the hip, squeeze those shoulder blades. Try and feel your chest forward just like that. So now your hamstrings, you should start to feel your hamstrings through those heels, and you'll come through, make contact, and then you can shrug those elbows high and then move the feet. Okay, good. Give me one more, and think once you make contact off the hips, it's like you're shrugging that bar. Yeah, you're pulling apart and into your face. It's like pull to my face, punch, and drop into the hole onto those heels. Forward. Good, now move those feet a little bit more. Okay, take a little break. I want you to think about, again, setting those shoulder blades. So this is important, especially coming from the bodybuilding world, is that everything you're doing is more about like that mind-muscle connection and retracting your shoulders when you're doing rows. And even so for you, typically I wouldn't even trigger this as an upright row, but for you, you might be able to relate to it a little bit better, which is going to help recruit your traps a little bit more. So I want you to think about when you come forward and the bar stays right above the knees, you feel your hamstrings loaded, you feel your lats even, so and then you're retracting your scaps, and then you come forward, you bring the hips through, your feet, the whole goal is that your feet are gonna stay flat until you make contact. Once you make contact, then you go up onto the toes, then you can finish with that big, for you it would be that upright row. I would typically just say, you make contact, high elbows with a shrug, turn over, and this is like that external rotation into the catch. And its footwork would be here, right out, okay? So let's go, come forward, feel those hamstrings load, feel the lats tight, feel the scap tight. Come off the hips. Okay, now we just gotta work on moving those feet. Yes, right there, good. And keep thinking about the hips. This is the most important part of the lift to get good bar speed. So this is where the bar is going to really, really accelerate. And if you think about continuing to pull, we want to pull as long as we can and then get to that catch as fast as we can. Because as soon as we're done pulling, the bar is going to start to drop. Okay, so it's like pull, 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 get into that catch as quickly as we can. And if you can think about that throughout, you learning right now, that's going to help you sort of trigger everything so that you hold those good positions. Okay, so let's go 2 more off the hip. Good, good. Yo, that's legit. Love those hamstrings, lats stay tight. Good, good. Okay, perfect. And what I want to do now is I'm going to go right from the floor. Okay, so coming from the floor, and we won't, maybe we'll put weight on. I don't even think we need to put weight on because I would rather you just learn the movement for right now. And then in a year we come back and you're snatching 70 kilos.
His words.
So what I want you to think about when you're setting up and we're pulling off the floor, it'll be a little weird because there's no weight. So we'll start with the bar right about mid shin, okay? And I want you to think about, and you just wait a little bit because I'll try to explain it as clearly as I can for a bodybuilder. And here's the thing, you have a pretty good sense of, proprioception. You have a good awareness of where you're at. And I want you to keep thinking that the bar has to stay as tight as it can stay, like as tight as possible. Anything that drifts forward is going to make you go on your toes, it's going to make the bar feel heavier, and it's going to compromise your technique. Okay, so if we can think about the hands keeping the bar tight, the lats and shoulders keeping the bar tight, and our scap. So if I'm not retracting my scap here, if I'm more externally rotated here, the bar is going to be forward. If I just move my scap in, now the bar's tighter. Then I move my lats, rotate my hands in, and I think about pushing from my hands. If we can do all those things, that's going to keep the bar tight. So that's what the upper body's doing. But now we've got to go into what are the legs going to do? Because I think that's one thing that everybody sort of forgets, is that what I want to see is when you start, your butt's going to be a little bit higher, so you're going to be thinking about lower back and hamstrings, okay? So right from the start, I want to see your knees push back, and I want you to pretend there's a line from the knees into my heels. So my toes are going to be grabbing. Pretend these are my toes. Pretend this is my heel, okay? So my toes are going to grab and my heel is going to grab. So my entire foot is going to be applying force. And what happens is my knees come back over my heels. That's going to light up my hammies, my glutes, and my lower back. Okay, so this, like we went over, hands, lats, scap, back, and the knees come back, so the bar has a straighter path, and then right as the bar passes over my knees, I'm going to start to come back through with my knees, and I'm going to keep my chest over. So it's a little awkward, but that's the best way for us to keep that bar super, super tight, and then you'll stay over the bar here, the bar's going to make contact, and we're back to that catch position, we're back to that hip position. Yeah, now see how the bar's forward? Now we gotta think, yeah, there you go, perfect. Now do that again. Knees forward, knees back. Pause, I want to see the bar, stop right here. Good, okay. 2 more like that. A little back more, a little with the knees. Good, 1 more. Okay, see how your toes came up there?
Yeah.
That's good, put the bar back. So I'm happy that that happened too. Is that oftentimes when we're doing this, is that when the knees push back, and this is the one aspect that for some reason nobody actually teaches, is that we've got to clear the knees out. And we also have to remember our hamstrings they have more fast twitch muscle fibers than our quads. So I want to see the hamstrings load. And when the weight gets back over the heels, you don't want to, this is where grabbing with our toes comes into play. Okay, so if we can think grab, that's going to make our foundation, our feet a little bit more stable. The knees clear out, the bar stays tight, then we bring the knees back through. Okay, so the tendency right now in the beginning is you're going to keep your knees a little bit forward, you're a little quad dominant, not terrible, but think knees back, and then they come back through after the bar passes. Okay, good. So it's like, and it's almost like this, where this is your butt, this is your head, okay? What's gonna end up happening is that even though the knees will come back, the head should stay above your butt. Your butt will rise a little bit to load the hamstrings, but it shouldn't be that your butt gets this high.
Yeah, the toes were a good cue.
Okay, good. Pass the knees, pause. And we'll do 3 of these, and then we're gonna go right into that full snatch. If you don't get the full snatch right on the first try, I'm kicking you out of the gym.
That's fair.
So think like these push back. Yeah, okay. Just like that, there you go. Yeah, then okay, good. Now 1 more. So these come back, and then after the bar passes, go really slow, like real slow. Push them back more, right there. Now let the bar come to here. Now bring the knees forward a little more. Then you'll explode to the finish.
Okay.
Okay, okay, that's okay. That's fine, you sort of looped that a little bit. So if we go back to the beginning, what I like, you're really good with your foot position. Like a real simple cue that you can do is just say, all right, 1 foot width apart is where I'm gonna, my pulling stance, or about shoulder width. I like my toes out a little bit, and so the goal will be, we pull, and then once we finish, when we catch, we're gonna be almost in like a front squat position, a little bit wider. So if we can think about, my body here is tall, so I'm gonna finish tall, 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 as tall as I can get. When my feet move out, so if I go from here and you measured me, I'd be 6'1". When I go like this, now I'm 6 foot. But what ends up happening is I can pull taller, then when my feet get wider, I can get my butt down and I can catch deeper. So that's where the mobility comes into play, and having that strong thoracic spine comes into place. So it's like, get them out of the way, then the bar will pass tight, and then you can make contact. So knees back, go a little slower, knees back so you can feel it. Okay, do that again. Yeah, that's okay. Yo, good, good. Good. Okay, so that's the thing, is like, I could sit here and just pound the shit out of you, or I could shut my mouth and let you take 3 or 4 reps and you feel it out. 'Cause that's the other thing, is that it's the whole movement is so feeling oriented that's important. Yes, yo, that's good. Okay, yo, right now, do that and go right in the hole. Okay, okay, okay. Give me one now where you do the exact same thing, but after you make contact, I want you to shrug, turn, and punch. Yes, yes.
Let's go, Jordan!